What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of Roma Nation. I'm AK, your favorite guy, and tonight, it's time. Harris versus Trump, baby, 2024. Here we go. Guys, it's time. It is that time for the presidential debate. We're going to pull this up in a second, but first, my co-host tonight, Major Brian. What's going on?
Hey, I'm just here for the ride, man. I want to play some bingo.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I got you can see Brian's debate bingo up on the top there, but we've got, let's see, what do we got tonight? Let's see, we've got human trafficking, felon, mass migration, Hamas, swamp, Houthis, or was that Houthis?
Yeah, Houthis.
Yep, Houthis, communist, dictator, China. Murdered pets. Let's see, what's that? Weaponization of courts, Hezbollah. Let's see, unfair inflation, border czar, liar, Russian interference, misinformation, ultra rich, worst economy ever, criminal, prosecutor, excuse me, and disaster, and of course, the free spot, the Kamala cackle. All right,
yep.
So here we go. Looks like they're starting kind of early tonight, so let's get these guys in here, get started.
Historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic.
Oh, I'm ready.
The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns.
Oh,
the
right.
candidates will have 2 minutes to answer
questions. Brian, what do you think Kamala
That's
is
what
wearing
they'll be
tonight?
Seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, and responses. There
Some heels, most likely.
When it's their turn to
probably pantsuit.
Pre-written notes allowed.
Yeah.
Blue.
There is no
I'm calling
here tonight
blue top, blue bottom, white blouse.
Center. This is an intimate
Yep.
setting. 2 candidates
That'd be on brand.
have never
Yep.
met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Here we go.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome
that
to you
blue,
both.
blue, and
It's
white?
wonderful to have you. It's an
No, it's
honor to have you
black.
both here tonight.
That was
Good
off.
evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4
Yes,
years
it
ago,
is.
and your
Hit
opponent
my
on the
wallet.
stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity
You should just say
economy.
imagine.
Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that
Is
young
the background
families need
noise
support
fixed?
to raise their
nope,
children,
still here.
and I intend on extending
Sounds like you're on an
a
airplane.
tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long
Brian's
time.
coming to you
so
live
that those
from
young families
a
can afford to buy a
757
crib, buy
Delta
a car
flight.
seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan
Here we
is
go.
to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do.
So China,
They're taking in
everybody.
billions of dollars from China.
I took it.
Places they've
China.
left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a
Inflation.
terrible economy
Drink.
because inflation has, which is really known
That's
as a
twice.
country buster. It
Oh
breaks
man,
up
this is
countries.
gonna be bad.
We
I
have
already know it.
inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class.
Damn
On
it.
top of that, we have
Disasters in the deck. I don't have it.
country, from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon.
Yes, I got jobs.
You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy
Boom.
since the
Oh,
Civil
damn it.
War. And what we have done is
It's in the deck. I didn't get it on my card.
And what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you on this debate tonight,
that's going to be my secret
from the
spot.
same old tired playbook. A bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling.
There we go. I'm taking it.
Here tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan.
Yeah, I took it.
2025
that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected
It was nice
again.
knowing you.
I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible.
New World Order color.
And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll respond.
So, Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel.
Actually, best economy ever, worst economy ever, both in there.
As something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs, you responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs
China's also buying up land
under their administration. We are going to take in
helping other countries out with
dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Infrastructure.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did,
What are you
let's
sitting at
talk
right
about
now,
this,
Brian?
with
What's that,
COVID,
5?
is he actually thanked President Xi for what he
Yeah,
did
5.
during COVID. Look at his tweet.
I'm at
Thank
6.
you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible
You got a better card than I did.
and not giving
Yeah.
us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy.
Yes.
She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at
Who
what
had
she's done
MAGA hat
to our
on their,
country, and when you look at these millions and
That's
millions of
great.
people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these
Was it
people
mass
coming in are
migration?
criminals. And that's bad
Yep.
for our economy, too.
I'll
You know,
take
you
it.
mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Let's see.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President
You know, I'm going to go ahead and call her. He called her out for voters over
Last year,
there.
you
So
said that
I'm
you
taking
were
it.
proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would
He called her out for border czar right there. He didn't say it, but he called her out for it. So I'm taking it.
It
With
was
regard
close
to your
enough.
6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short, and you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
So the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states.
I'm surprised I don't
And
have
through
anything
the,
on my card about abortion.
Genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump.
Here's the question.
He answered that exactly how I expected him to answer it. So I gave it to the states,
and they did exactly as
I think that's
and now in over
the right answer,
states,
honestly.
there are Trump
It is, but he also
bans,
didn't say
which make
that
it
there's any states that are killing after the
for
baby.
a doctor or
He didn't
nurse
say
to
that.
provide health care in
We said
one
that that's
state,
what
it
Vice
provides
President
prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that.
Heartstring moment from the woman who has never birthed a child.
To put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade,
not even
as
that,
President
but,
of
like,
the United States, I
how
will
do you-
proudly sign it into law.
did he
But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025,
Oh, there it is.
would be a national
Yep.
Where's
abortion
Project 2020?
monitor that would
I'm
be
going to add that
monitoring your
to my
pregnancies,
list.
your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own
By the way, if
body,
you want to know the truths and
should not be
misconceptions
made
of
by the
Project
government.
2025,
Thank you, Vice
I got an
President
episode I
Harris.
did
Well,
6
there she
weeks
goes
ago
again.
on that
It's a
very
lie.
issue.
I'm not signing a ban,
guys should check it
and there's
out
no
on
reason
Rumble.
to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did
If
something
Trump
that
wants to
nobody
survive
thought
this,
was
he needs to
possible.
get off of abortion
The
now.
states are now voting. What she says is an absolute
Agreed.
lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well,
came
I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student
was
loans,
actually
and
true.
then her, I think probably
Yep.
her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way.
Oh
He
my
went
God.
out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free.
I was one of them.
But they were saying it's the same way that they talk
I
about
paid up.
that they talk about abortion.
I paid my loans off too.
Yes, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says
They'll
about
never
going
get
to
that
Congress.
money
So wonderful. Let's go to Congress.
What if they're going to
too.
write me a check?
But the fact is that for years they wanted to
write
get
me a
it out
check.
of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under
I
Donald
don't think
Trump's
that's the
abortion
issue.
ban.
The issue is that the fact
Couples
that it's
who pray
not even a bill.
and dream of having a family
Right.
are being
Yeah.
denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why
Trump, you need to get off the
every
subject.
state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris.
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing...
Jesus Christ, get off this, Trump.
You should
God
ask,
damn it.
will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that
Why
question?
don't you answer the question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer the
Wade,
question. Would you veto?
Shouldn't her
do
microphone be
abortions
off?
in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
Not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know
Thank
it's an issue
God.
for Republicans
Thank God.
across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden getting to the root causes of migration
here we
from
go.
Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a
That's not
record
to be
high
interesting.
in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election?
This is where I fill out my bingo
And
card.
would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and
You sick
human
prosecutor?
beings. And let me say
Yes, you did.
that the United
There's
States
one.
Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight
Beard's
who
like,
have been personally
is she really a
affected
prosecutor?
by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for
By the way,
trafficking in
Beard is
guns,
here.
drugs, and
He's
human
behind the
beings. But
scenes,
you know what
but he's
happened
here.
to that
Says
bill?
hi.
Donald Trump got on the phone called up some folks in Congress and said,
Cheers.
kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
I'm going to be honest with everybody.
And I'm going to
here.
actually do something really unusual.
If
And I'm
anybody
going to
thought that
invite
Kamala
you
was going to walk
to
in here
attend
not
one of
prepared,
Donald Trump's
you were
rallies, because
sadly
it's a
mistaken.
really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
No, they leave
will
your
not hear him
rallies
talk
too. They
about
just
your
come to
needs,
see
your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Was that a cackle?
As far
Was that a cackle?
rallies are concerned, as far as
Yes, it was.
Is they
Oh,
like
my
what I
goodness.
say.
It counts.
They
It counts.
They want to make
It
America
counts.
great again.
That's why I made it to free space.
Great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not
There's
only
been a
success,
lot
we'll end up being
of stuff.
Venezuela steroids.
I just want to clarify here.
Oh.
Springfield,
He just
Ohio.
brought up misinformation. I got bingo.
There, he told us there have been no credible reports of specific
I have bingo.
harm, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant
Yeah,
community.
man.
I
This
am
is people on
got bingo,
television.
Let me
yeah.
just say here, this is
The people on television say
clear-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Another cackle.
You know,
Oh,
this
boy.
is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans
Trump, you should have stuck
who
with the
have
border.
formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people
Hey,
are
Brian,
not
you know,
being
you
addressed,
know what's crazy about
I
this
think the
debate
choice is clear in
is
this
that the
election.
fact
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to
everyone
respond.
has been
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a
they've
different
been
kind of a
so
person.
like
I fired most of those
bamboozled
people.
about Biden's
Not so
performance
graciously. They
that,
did
that Kamala
bad things
almost
or
looks like
bad
a
jobs.
superstar.
I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't
Yeah.
fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations.
Yes, it was. I couldn't believe that actually happened.
So
and then
when
what
somebody
happened
does
afterwards?
a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book.
Afghanistan
Because with
withdrawal
me, they
was
can
a
write books with
disaster.
nobody else can.
I just remember. I just remember
And they never fire anybody.
Biden on the tarmac.
Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any
As
of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not
those
to have books written about you.
caskets were being offloaded, and
I got
he
more votes than any
took him his watch.
Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any
That's what I
sitting
remember.
president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you called
Did you see that video, Biddy?
deportation operation
That
in the
was
history of our country. You say you would use
Now,
the
they said that it
National Guard.
wasn't
You say
an
it's been out
immigrant,
of
but
control.
there's no
You
proof,
have
so
no
I'm going
problem
to take
using
that
the
with a
U.S.
grain of salt.
military. You also said you would use local police. How do you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country? Yeah.
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people
The illegal immigrant question on the census.
Crime is
What?
down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the FBI defrauded. They were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond.
It's all being
Well, I
redefined.
think this is so rich, coming from someone who
whoever
has
said
been
that in the background.
prosecuted
Oh,
for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his
here we
next
go.
big court appearance is in November at his own criminal.
why doesn't have my
And
shit?
let's be
I've got
clear,
that one.
where each
criminal-
person stands on the issue.
Do you have prosecutor?
Respect for the rule of law. And
Oh, that one as well.
the former vice president called for defunding
Yep.
federal law enforcement 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts.
There it is.
So let's talk about what is
Felon,
in this
if you
race.
got felon,
That
check
we
it
move
off.
forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same
Anybody
old tired
wants to see my
playbook.
bingo card
Vice
real
President
quick? That's it right there. I'm getting destroyed.
And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick.
I chose my card poorly.
Weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about
I still haven't
extreme
hit bingo
and
yet.
understand the context in which this.
Well, at least I've hit bingo already, but
States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political
Wait, what did
enemies.
she
he
just
he has never fucking said that.
For
Did
members
she
of
just
our
really say
military.
that?
Understand,
I mean, she's just
what
pulling
is
shit out of thin air. Oh my God.
no
And
guardrails.
I don't know where all this background noise is coming from, so I'll mute my mic again.
It's
Yeah,
up
just
to the American
just
people
when you're going to talk on
to
mute.
stop him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took
Nope,
a
still
bullet
running.
to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake
Trump.
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking.
Write that down,
now
Brian.
you don't.
He
You
said
wanted
that he's
mandatory
going to
government buyback
end the
programs for
Constitution of the United
assault
States.
weapons.
We're going to
Now
look it
your
up on the commercial
campaign
break.
says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
Why hasn't she done
And
that
my
already?
focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting
Do you
people
guys
up
remember
and not
when,
beating people down
when the
and
kid
name
in
calling?
2022,
The true measure of the leader
and he said,
is the
here's my
leader
Walmart
who
order from 2
actually
years
understands
ago, and it was like
that strength is not in beating
$124.
people down, it's in lifting
And then
people up.
he
I
pulled the
intend to
same
be
order
that
2.5
president.
years later,
President
and it was
Trump,
like
you're
3
First of
times
all, I
as
wasn't
much.
given $400 million. I
It wasn't
wish
a
I
lie.
was. My father was a Brooklyn
Yeah, I
builder,
remember
Brooklyn
that
builder,
one.
and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was
Yeah.
given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction,
Yeah,
and
they-
I built
they
it
actually
into
want
many
to release
billions of
that out
dollars, many
because of it.
billions. And when people see it, they are
That's
even
crazy.
surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years.
Yeah, so I kind of forgot that my web camera also has a microphone, and that was
very
that
horribly,
input
and
was
everybody's laughing
directed
at it,
here.
okay? They're all laughing at
Sorry.
it. She
You
gave
sound
up
so much
at
better.
least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies, like She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind.
Oh,
Please.
perfect. Oh,
Does that sound familiar?
No, I'm claiming it.
She went out. She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish,
got bingo two ways now.
In my opinion. So
I wasn't expecting Trump to do the excuse me moment.
When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it.
I got a bingo
and
off
the
of excuse
prices were
me.
going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get to.
environment, as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to Capitol.
And that's how I'm going to
be
say
right
it
there with
from
them.
here on out for the
The
rest
country
of
and
my
the
life.
world saw what played out in the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack.
I
Aides
gotta
in the West
reload.
Wing say
Be
you
right
watched
back.
it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during
you
my
did.
speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by
Border
the border. In
czar,
fact, she
there it
said
is.
at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about
Bingo,
the border yet.
that's
That's
two
because
bingos.
she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are
you-
those, David? When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into
Yes.
Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the
Yes,
city
they
of
did.
Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the
question.
president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me.
You
Nancy
did,
Pelosi
multiple times.
rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for
to request
security.
it.
Nancy
Trump can't just
Pelosi was
send
responsible.
troops
She
to-
didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president,
to the
not
building.
about
You
former
can't
Speaker
just do
Pelosi.
that.
But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
There's a whole act about that.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate
By the way,
our
if you
nation's
want to know
capital.
about the
On
January
that day,
6th events,
140 law enforcement
please go to
officers
Roma
were injured.
Nation on
And some
Rumble.
died.
I've got a
And
3-part
understand,
series
the
on this entire thing.
president has been indicted and
you.
impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville,
Okay, so Trump's
where
microphone.
there was a
Keep in
mob
mind,
of people
Trump tried to
carrying
talk,
tiki
and his
torches,
microphone is off.
spewing
Hers is not.
anti-Semitic hate. And what
Remember
did
that.
the president then at the time
All right,
say?
at
There were fine people on each
9:48.
side.
9:48
Let's remember.
p.m.
Oh my God,
that
she's
when it came
repeating
to
the
the
same
Proud Boys, the
fucking
militia,
lie. She's going back to the same
President
fucking
said, the former
memes
president said, stand back and
that
stand
have been
by.
proven and or
So for
been
everyone
disproven,
watching who
debunked
remembers
over
what
and over
January
and
6th
over and
was,
fucking again.
I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our
Elizabeth,
democracy
you're right.
because you don't like the outcome.
If you wanted to go by
And
force,
be
he would have
clear,
sent the
on that
National
point,
Guard, which they
Donald Trump,
denied.
the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story
Yeah, that
has
was
been, as
already
you
been
would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval.
On Georgia.
I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which is what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. We need, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad.
No, I only have one. I mean, it's literally dancing around.
They're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into
that's two right
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news.
It really doesn't.
And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is
courts
dying,
are not
David.
balanced.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President
under
Harris,
any circumstance.
you heard the president there tonight.
Go to a
He said
traffic
he didn't say that he lost
and
by whiskers. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace.
From
and when you
2016
then talk in this
to 2020,
way in a presidential debate and deny
the percentage of votes
what
that
over
Democrats
and over
went
again
up
are court cases you
was the
have
highest
lost
in history.
because you did in
Like
fact lose
not
that
even
election.
close. It was like times 5.
It leads one to believe that perhaps we
It
do
went from
not
like
have in the
4.5%
candidate to
to
my
like
right the
19%.
temperament
I mean, that's not exactly
or
5,
the
but still.
ability to not be confused about fact.
Like,
That's
where did you
deeply
find an extra
troubling, and the American
19%
people
of
deserve
votes?
better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Victor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day 1, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office.
I am a threat to
democracy. He hates her.
Oh,
he
man.
can't stand her.
You took your line.
I'm a threat to
14 million votes.
You should
They
challenge
threw
him to a duel.
She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running.
The wheelbarrow he carries his balls in
Your
is
time is
much
up.
larger
Well.
than
We've got
the
a lot more to
one
get.
I
Turning
carry.
now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages
here we
who
go.
are being held, Americans
It's going to
among
be
them.
interesting.
Vice President
Hamas.
Harris in December
Yes, I have
said,
Hamas.
quote,
Here we
Israel
go.
has a
Why?
right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100
At this point, I'm
hostages
just seeing if I
remain.
blank out my
Deputy
card.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said,
Can I show
"There's
my
not a
card?
deal
Look,
in the
I have
making."
so many
President
like
Biden has not been able to break
fours.
That's mine right there.
Well,
I'll share mine though.
got here. On October 7th, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so
I think I'm right. It is a blue suit, white blouse.
Can you guys see that? Like, I have so many close ends. It's so annoying. Sorry.
Hey, Kamala,
what we
how many
know
innocent
is that
Afghanis, Middle
this
East
war
killed
must
in the Iraqi
end.
war?
It must end immediately.
Allen.
And the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages
Oh,
out.
did you say Hezbollah?
And so we will continue to work
Oh,
around
well,
the
she
clock
did.
on that.
Boom.
Did she
Work
mention
around the clock,
Hezbollah?
also
did.
understanding that we
That's-
must chart
Sound
a
like it.
course for a two-state solution.
Oh
And
shit! I don't
in
have that
that
one on my
solution,
card.
there must
I
be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the
I
Palestinians.
think I did a pretty good
But the one
job
thing I will
because I
assure
came
you
up with
always,
like
I will always give Israel the
30
ability to defend itself,
5
in
or
particular
36
as it
unique phrases.
relates to Iran
You know,
and
plus
any threat that
Kamala
Iran and
cackling
its
free
proxies
space.
pose to Israel.
No. Like,
But we
she's
must
trying
have a
to pander
two-state
and say, like, she's
solution
trying to protect
where we
everyone
can
else and would piss
rebuild
everyone
Gaza,
off.
where the
No, sorry,
Palestinians have security,
She's trying to stand in the middle.
self-determination,
She's
and
like,
the
oh, she's in
dignity
the
they
middle
so
of a
rightly
firing line
deserve.
right now from both sides.
President
She's on no
Trump,
man's
how
land.
would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever. I know
There's
Putin
nothing
very
they can
well.
do.
He would
Israel
have never, and there was no
announced
threat of it either.
where
Damn
the
it! I don't have Russia on my
Hamas
got into
card.
civilians,
Ukraine
like food
and killed
trucks in those regions
millions
on
of
those
people
days
when
to
you
ensure
add it up.
civilian
Far
casualties.
worse than people understand what's going on
Like,
over there. But when
Like,
she
what can you do?
mentions
Like,
about
Hamas wants their civilians
Israel,
to be
all of
killed
a
so they can
sudden,
throw
she
sympathy.
hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe
Oh,
that
look.
Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone.
Oh wow,
It
that's
would
a
have never
huge claim to
happened.
make.
Iran
Bold
was
statement.
broke under Donald Trump. Now
Yep.
Iran
Like,
has
there's no going
$300
back to that.
billion
Like, she's accusing
because
her
they
of
took
being,
off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or
Wait,
Hezbollah or
but
any
that's
of the
technically
28
anti-Semitic.
different
I get the Semenite like claiming
spheres
from that.
I
of
know
terror.
Iran's
They
in
are
there.
spheres of terror, horrible terror.
Oh, was
They
around
had
there?
no money.
Oh, I just got
It
bingo.
was a
Nice.
big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had
Serious,
no
finally.
money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle
Houthis.
East.
Another
This
bingo.
would have never
Oh, there it
happened.
is.
I will
Yep.
get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine
Bro,
and
this is
Russia
horrible.
ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get
I only
it
have
done
I only have
before
2
even
lines, and the rest are
becoming
just all
president.
over the
Vice
place. Look,
President Harris.
So,
this is
I'm
horrible.
looking for civil war and free trade.
My entire career and life supported Israel. You know, again, divide and
Who made
distract
this card?
from the reality, which is it is very well
Around the
known
here,
Well,
apparently.
that
Well,
Donald
I-
Trump is weak and wrong on national
I came up
security
with
and
all
foreign
the
policy.
unique
It is
phrases.
well
Are you kidding
known
me?
that he admires
He was one of the strongest threats
dictators,
you've had on
wants to
security.
be a dictator on day one,
Right.
according to himself. It is
Like-
well known
Dictator
that
on
he
day one,
said of
another
Putin
debunk.
that
Oh.
he can do whatever the hell he
Oh,
wants in
I
I
going
got
to
dictator
Ukraine.
on my card. Hold-
It is well known that he
Shit.
said when Russia went into
We need to
Ukraine,
put lack
it
of
was
sarcasm.
brilliant. It is
on the
well known
card.
he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un, and it is absolutely well known
Love
that
letters
these
with Kim
Shut
Jong-un.
the
dictators and
fuck up,
autocrats are
Kamala.
rooting
You sucked
for
Willie
you
Brown's
to be
dick.
president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with
Sorry,
flattery
folks, this is a
and
family-friendly
favors.
show.
And that is why so
It
many
is?
military
Oh,
leaders
fuck.
who you have worked
Sorry.
with
He
have
really had the
told
balls
me
to go
you
into
are
like a communist
disgrace.
country unguarded.
That is why
No
we
other president's ever done
understand
that.
that we have to have a president who is not
Here
consistently
we go,
weak
dictator.
and
Yeah, I got
wrong
that
on
one.
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
And she's the one that caused it. That's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it.
Yes, he did.
Because what he's gotten away with is
So
absolutely
I'm going to go ahead and check off Russian interference on my card on that one.
Yeah, I got that as well. Think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent.
Fair civil war, fair trade.
You know what's funny? I still don't have another
go in
bingo.
and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the
this is
single
insanity.
biggest
I'm
deal
gonna show you guys
Russia's
my card
ever
after
made,
this.
Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world, going to Germany. And
Y'all
all
can
over
see
Europe.
my card. It's in my
Because they're
camera.
weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
So,
wow.
While we're in commercial break, I have two no shit bingos, but out of a 25 square card, I've got 3, 6, 8,
dude,
13.
Look at my card, bro. Look at this. Look at this. I can. This is horrible, dude.
Yeah, Roma, I'm in the
kidding
server boat. Hold on. What do you have? Ultra rich. What are you missing? Unfair.
Ultra rich, unfair, dictator. Wait, did he say unfair?
Yeah, he said dictator. Dude, you got 4 matches now for fuck's
Oh my
sake. Why are you
goodness.
playing that?
Oh my god! I thought I was doing good shit.
Bottoms up.
Bottoms up.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Cheers, I guess.
But yeah, so all of the trigger words, all of the what do you call it? When you look at those dating shows, no, not the dating shows, but the podcast, the dating podcast where the girls come on and buzzwords.
Oh, whatever.
All the buzzwords. Yeah. Every single buzzword has been used so far. And on both sides.
Yeah, no, Roma, look at my screen. Like free trade, prosecutor, socialist, unfair, fair share, civil war, loser.
Yeah,
how's
civil war?
Loser and civil war? Not come on.
Mm-hmm. But Trump had some zingers though. He had some zingers. What did he say? He copied that for me. I should send you a MAGA hat.
Yeah, he told her I was said you were just copying so much of my stuff and promoting so many of my policies. I was going to send you a MAGA hat.
Right. Either that or what was the other one where it was like, "Excuse me, I'm speaking." Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Oh man, this has been great though. But again, guys, I cannot stress this enough. All right, Kamala Harris is not Joe Biden. All right,
no.
She can speak. She knows how to speak. She's speaking in front of people for a long time. Yeah, when they throw her up softballs or whatnot, it's going, it's going to look like, okay, well, exactly that. They're throwing her softballs. But she's been training for this for a couple of weeks now. So, of course, she's going to seem a lot more coherent.
How long has she been?
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, but be honest. Do you honestly believe she's sober? I mean, I would be surprised. They probably have her on some weird cocktail stuff to keep her.
I think she is, because if she wasn't sober, she'd be cackling, all over the place.
I mean, she was starting to lose it slightly towards the midpoint there. She was kind of losing her own of herself a small bit. But yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, I guess, but
also, you pointed out, Roma, Trump tried to say something and she got muted.
Right. I don't think anybody on her campaign would let her do that, though. I think they'd be like, absolutely not. I mean, it's not like Biden. I mean, that guy was on all kinds of happy pills.
Yeah. I guarantee you they had her in that. At the very end, once the debate's over, there's an open bar. If you could just get through this debate, have at it. Here's a bunch of Bud Light that no one bought. You can have all of it. We got mountains of the stuff.
Tell me about it.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, for the most part, she's doing a lot better than I thought she would do. So
I mean, she did really well because Trump took the bait and he would not walk off abortion.
Well, he got crushed on abortion, but we knew that was going to happen. Like, he wasn't going to win that debate.
Yeah.
So, but that's why they
like
pushed it for so long. They pushed it for nearly 20 minutes. Right. They pushed it for 20 minutes. You know, all the other questions were like, what, 7-8 minutes tops. Yeah. But they did that on purpose because they wanted.
They kept saying like, "Oh, we're pushed for time. We have other topics to go." Like, you were hanging on abortion for ages.
Exactly.
Like, there's a reason why they made that the number 2 topic. Like, they wanted to waste time on that so they could justify Russia game if they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this.
But the economy and
immigration. Mastermind way. Well played.
Oh, we're back.
Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Yeah. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. Mm-hmm. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled.
Minimum.
I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left.
Didn't start a war.
I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David.
We're
playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being
World
destroyed.
War III
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
I think he's looking at purely from
first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
I believe the
reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up.
That's
as Americans. Let's understand what happened here.
Really? She's accusing him of...
Met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared
So
with him
why
American
don't you
intelligence about how he
enforce
could
the
defend
border,
himself.
our border,
Days later,
Madam
I
Vice
went to NATO's
President?
eastern flank, to Poland and
Yeah,
Romania.
this war happened on
And
your
through
watch.
the work that I and others did,
what are
we
you
brought
talking
50
about?
countries
Are you
together
blaming him
to
for a war?
support Ukraine in its righteous
A war
defense.
they started.
And
back.
because
Well, a
of
year,
our
but still.
support, because of the air defense, the ammunition,
Wow,
the
I really hope
artillery,
Trump does
the
not let that slide.
javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not
If it
just
was a
about
Europe, we
Ukraine.
could get in there.
Right.
Understand why the European
He wouldn't have
allies
even
and our
fucking
NATO
tried.
allies
Until
are
Trump
so
got out.
thankful that you are no longer
Basically,
president,
they all stopped
and that
going to
we
war because they didn't want to piss off Trump.
understand
And
the
then as soon as he
importance
left, they
of the
all went to
greatest
war.
military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland.
was
And why
under
don't you tell
Obama,
the
the CIA
800,000
started
Polish Americans
convincing
right
Ukraine to
here in
start pissing off
Pennsylvania how
Russia.
quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think
the
is a
Democrats have been
friendship
planning
with
this war
what
for
is known to be a
over a decade
dictator
now, maybe
who would
two.
eat you for lunch.
Oh,
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should. As a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong men instead of caring about democracy.
What's with this wide shot?
And that is very
Where's
much
Trump's
what
wide
is
shot?
at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO.
Trade, loser,
he said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up.
Oh,
by
wow.
saying one of the
Amazing. I
statements
still
he
don't
made
have an extra
before,
link.
If you don't
You
pay,
can mark
we're
off
not going to
prosecutor.
protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate.
I'm sure
and we
you
witnessed
wanna
a
return
poignant
Afghanistan.
moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask
That
the
was
Vice
Biden's
President,
fault.
do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan.
Trump was pulling out
presidents
first. Not Biden.
Trump already made
and
that
Joe Biden
decision.
And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless
Yeah,
war.
but 13
That was
Marines
under
As of
saved
today,
their
there
lives.
is not
My
one
God.
member of the United States military who is
Obama,
in active duty
Bush started
in a
war. Obama
combat zone in
escalated.
any
Trump
war
wanted
zone
to end
around
the
the
whole
world
thing,
the first
and
time
then you
this
picked up the
century.
retreat.
But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker.
No, the Abraham Accords
Even
were
his
fine.
national
You
security
affected them.
advisor said it was a weak,
But you
terrible
didn't shut
deal.
the
And
fuck
here's
up,
how it
sit
went
down.
down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban
Because
getting
Taliban run the
5,000 terrorists, Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place
What
where
did he
we
do when he came to
honor
Camp David?
the importance of
If
American
you hurt an
diplomacy,
American,
where we
any
invite and
hair on an
receive
American's head, I
respected
will
world
kill you.
leaders.
And gave the leader of the
this-
Taliban a picture of his
Former
house.
president,
He
as
literally
president,
put a
invited
finger
them
in their chest.
to Camp David
Yeah.
because he does not
Invite them
again
into it. Like
appreciate
that's how you get
the
through peace
role
talks.
and
You invite people in
responsibility
under peace.
of the president of the
Like-
United States
What do
to
you
be
think?
actually
commander
that's
in
the
chief
Bring him
with
in
a
so you
level
can-
of respect. And this gets back to the
And
point
allow
of
all
how he has
Taliban members to come
consistently
across
the border.
disparaged and demeaned members of our military,
Oh my God!
fallen
He actually doesn't know.
soldiers,
This
and
this
the
shows
work
they
that
don't
we must
understand
do
how
to
peace
uphold
works.
the
How peace talks
strength
actually work.
and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President
what
Harris,
Trump
thank you.
did,
President Trump, your
he
response
pulled
to
them
her
up to
saying
Camp
he began
David.
the negotiations
thank
with the
you.
Taliban.
And,
So-
and
If you take a look at that period of
oh,
time,
shut up.
the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said,
Yes.
you're going to have to figure that
There it
out,
is.
Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good,
Kamala set this up for
we
her
were getting
perfectly.
out. We would have
She
been out
fucked up.
faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion
Yes.
worth of
I was
brand
about
new
There we go.
military
Yes.
equipment behind.
Ding, ding, ding,
And
ding,
just
ding,
to
ding,
finish,
ding. Yes.
they
Yes.
blew
Yes.
it.
Thank
By
you.
the way,
agreement
by
said
the
you
way,
have to
that
do
was
this,
used
this,
in the
and
attack
they didn't do it.
in
They
Israel.
didn't do
Yes.
it. The
Yes.
agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
And
on.
these people did the worst.
Yeah,
withdrawal.
I bet you do,
And
Mr.
in my
Moderator.
opinion,
I bet
the
you
most
do wanna move
embarrassing
on.
moment in the history of
I
our
bet
country.
you do
And by
wanna
the way,
move on.
that's
He's
why
actually rushing
Russia
Trump
attacked
after he had a
Ukraine,
Kamala
because they
filibuster
saw
for
how
2 minutes. Are you
incompetent
kidding me?
she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country.
Oh, here we
Mr.
go.
President, you
Oh.
recently said of Vice President
go.
Harris,
You're
quote,
showing her
I didn't know
bias
she
like
was
crazy.
black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight.
Oh no, here we go.
Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your
Oh
opponent?
my
I
God.
don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
I don't know what I'm
You make a big deal out of
They-
something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and
That she
I'll
put
say
out.
that.
That she
And
put
then
out.
I read that she was black.
Yeah.
Either one is okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Can we get that Can we add as an honorary bingo row of like
honestly, I think
shaming a president
tragedy.
I never considered that for a bingo card.
Has consistently over the course of his career attempted to use race to divide the American people.
We need to make that into a moment.
You know, I do
I'll clip that as like kind of like
we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want.
Oh, that's like.
This
I need to
kind of
download that and make that.
That's just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was
so glad to be part of the generation that saw the first slut shaming on a presidential debate in history.
He was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual.
Come on, 2024. She put out
in the New York Times, calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this. Want someone who understands as I do our travel our country.
Idiot.
We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor.
I want to be able to fill my
RAV4 up who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people, knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris.
Trump does that. You do the hate and division.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but
policies,
I mean,
every single policy.
And remember this, he did a great job.
She is Biden.
I'll give him that one.
You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman. She says, she is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Time's up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just
remember, these are people that said we had zero inflation, or you guys had 0% inflation. Because the change between 1 month and another was zero.
And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging.
We can't afford groceries. Yay!
People.
That's optimism.
I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our
You don't have to grow up and live with your family and parents.
What plans? You have
give startup businesses $50,000 tax
deduction. No one knows what your plans are, bitch.
Their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas.
All her plans is she ripped off Trump's plans and just ripped out Trump and then being clear on Harris.
For the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about.
I have a plan. What's your fucking plan, bitch?
What has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
Of course, and
where are you getting that money from?
I believe
25.
Where are you getting all that money from?
As and I don't care if you're legal here or not. About belittling and name calling.
No, the main thing is
turn the page.
that means every
President
single
Harris,
house.
Thank you. Let's turn to
is
policy.
going to
President
move up
Trump, we have to move on.
$25,000.
President Trump.
Let's turn to policy.
Oh,
please.
that is going to mess
defund
up the
the
economy
police.
like crazy.
She has a
Also,
plan
how are you going to do
to
that when
confiscate
people aren't paying 25
everybody's
grand
gun.
in
President Trump,
taxes?
you have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
Thank you,
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it
We're
is
gonna
pure
respond
chaos
one
right now.
time
This is
to
brilliant.
what he has
President
said.
Yeah,
Trump, this is now
man.
your third time running for president.
Yeah,
You have long
I'm gonna
vowed
go
to
get another
repeal
beer
and replace the
because-
Affordable Care
yeah.
Act, also known as
I need another
Obamacare. You
beer.
have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working
All
on
the
things,
family members
we're
were
going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But
Obamacare.
remember this. I
it's
inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If
Has
they would
anyone
have
said
done that, we
unfair
would have
yet?
had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be
Does
great.
anyone know if they said
Or do I
unfair or
let
fair
it-
share yet?
And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically
Okay,
it would have
never
been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to
This is a weak
cost
argument for me to get
our
off of now.
people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it
Glenn
can be run.
Jacobs says
So just a yes or no, you still do not
Trump
have a
is
plan.
debating
I
three
have
people right
concepts
now.
of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if
Yeah, I mean, the mask off at this
we
point,
come
they've
up
shown
with
that they're.
something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better
yeah.
and less expensive.
Well, we kind of
And there
expected
are
that, though. I mean,
concepts
didn't
and
Kamala say
options
she
we
wanted help
have
during the
to
debate?
do that?
Mm.
And you'll
One of the
be hearing
requirements.
about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a
My hot
government-run
take,
healthcare system. 2
this
years
won't
later, you
move the
proposed a
needle
plan that
for either
included a
one
private insurance
much
option.
either
What is your
direction.
plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4
Bernie
years as
Sanders,
vice president,
socialist, I'm calling
private
it.
healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away.
Which
Tim Walz and
one?
I are both gun owners. We're not taking
You've had
anybody's
about
guns
4.
away. So stop with the
By the
continuous
way,
lying
11
about
minutes
this
ago,
stuff.
Kamala Harris posted
As it
on
relates
Twitter.
to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just
Oh,
look
wow.
at the history to know where
Wow,
people
Wow, she
stand.
is talented.
When Donald Trump
My
was
goodness.
president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when
Right,
it was
you
up for a
don't.
vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain,
There I was.
who you have disparaged as being
Listen, man, no
you don't
shit.
like
There I
him, you
was.
said,
That's
at
how
the
you know
time
you're
because
hearing a
he got
bullshit war
caught. He
story.
was an American hero. The late, great
Yeah.
John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing
Yeah, baby.
conditions.
Who exactly
I don't
is
have to tell the
affordable
people
for?
watching tonight. You remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow
Just
Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water.
Where's that Jim
Vice
Carrey?
President Harris,
Here we
you
go.
call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Oh, these guys are full of themselves right now. Oh, man. I'm actually thoroughly impressed with this debate. I didn't fall asleep like the last one. But but the main thing here is, I mean, look at I mean, the immigration thing, we knew, like, that was, Kamala was not going to win that. But also, Trump was not going to win the abortion debate. So that's a wash right there.
Yeah.
All right. So we have to look at everything else that they've talked about. So far, especially with like Medicare, Medicaid.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me look up some of the notes I've been taking here. When they're talking about like small business and trying to create a better economy, you had 4 years to do this. You know,
right.
You have to remember we had 4 years of Trump, and then we had 4 years of Biden. So, and we got them in quick succession.
And
so I don't blame. Listen, I'm going to take COVID out of it. All right. So I'm going to say the end of 2019 to the beginning of 2022.
I don't think you can take COVID out of it, but you have to correct for COVID.
Right. No. Well, hear me out. If you take the end of 2019 to the beginning of 2022, and let's say that did not exist.
Okay.
Under whatever time is left under the Trump presidency and whatever time is left under the Biden presidency, from those points on in both directions, are you doing better then or are you doing better now? The reason why I took COVID out of this is because I don't want either side to use that as an excuse.
Right.
So,
which is why I'm saying, which is why I'm saying you can't take it out, but you have to correct for it. And if there were no COVID, all of the indicators, economy was on the upswing. Power of incumbency, which you cannot discount that. That's real.
Exactly.
Everything was pointing toward actually a Trump re-election landslide. Then COVID.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Are you kidding? Could you imagine?
Brian, you're looking fantastic over there.
I'm looking what? Huh?
I said you're looking fantastic over there. Don't worry, I'm feeling good right now.
So do I. Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Well, I mean, I got bingo 2 ways, and you got closer. I think you got closer to filling up your card.
I did actually. There was one spot that filled up four bingos, all at once. I was like, "Oh my god, how did this happen?"
Right.
If I would have just followed my bingo card, I would have known everything about the debate. I would have known that already.
I mean, I got pretty close, but yeah, I mean, I had to drop my Wi-Fi dropped off there. I don't suppose she mentioned free trade, so it's just unfair, fair share, civil war, loser.
I mean,
if not, then, Roma won this hands down.
I mean, that went.
Here, take yours down. I'm gonna show you mine. Mine is absolutely.
Let's go.
Oh.
Holy shit!
Yeah, This is. Which one was it? I think it was
the underdog story there, Roma. You were lagging behind for ages, and then all of them just popped off at once.
I mean, that just tells me I did a damn good job building the deck.
Yeah,
I forgot which one was it that got me. I think it was Hezbollah. Hezbollah took 3 right off the bat.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Oh, we're back in, right?
We're back in.
Get ready, lads and ladies. Where's the audio there, Roma?
Oh shit! I thought it was done.
No,
Roma, we have no audio. Okay, never mind.
How about now?
I can't hear anything.
You can't hear it?
All right, I can't hang no more. I gotta go to bed.
Hold on.
Try it again.
Give me a second.
You're using Chrome or Brave, right?
The
I can't
I can hear it now.
We're live, right? Yeah.
Of the American people, which is why I intend to create
Sorry about that,
an
guys.
opportunity economy, investing in
Can
small
you just bulk the audio a small
businesses,
bit?
in new families, in what
Can
we
you hear
can
it
do
now?
around protecting
I can hear it,
seniors,
just it's quiet.
what
Sorry.
we can do that is about
hold on.
giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the
Yeah.
cost of living. I believe in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do.
Yeah, she made the choice to have sex, and then she got
started
pregnant.
my career as a prosecutor.
Just
I
like
was the
the,
DA, I was an attorney general,
just like the
a
COVID
United
shot?
States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked
Whose people?
a victim or a witness, are you a
The people of
Republican or a
Venezuela?
Democrat? The
Mexico?
only thing I ever asked them,
South America?
are you okay? And that's the
She's
kind of
loyal to those
president we
people, but she's
need
not
right
loyal to
now.
America.
Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20
especially the
years
South
to
Americans.
build back
Latin
up our
America.
country by
South
investing
America.
right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it?
Yes.
She's been there for
Thank you.
3.5 years.
Yes,
They've
it
had
is.
3.5 years to fix the border.
She set herself
They've
up for
had
failure.
3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol,
But she was drunk for
get
all that
everyone
time.
together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just
Yeah,
ask
he's not
one
wrong. You
simple
guys can't
question.
afford that. So
Why
I'm sorry.
didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world.
She could
all
totally
over the
do it
world,
right
they laugh.
now.
I know
Most
the
of these
leaders very
things,
well.
if she
They're
said
coming
tonight,
to
she
see
could
me.
do
They
right
call me.
now.
We're
Yeah,
laughed
and
at
Biden-
all
and
over
she-
the
all
world.
she's
They don't
because-
understand
yeah,
what happened to
Peter
us as a
Pan,
nation.
Biden, and he'll
We're
sign
not
us.
a leader.
Unless you're
We don't
telling me
have
that
any
Biden will say
idea
no.
what's going on. We
Then that's
have
a bigger
wars going
issue.
on in the Middle East. We have
He
wars
won't say
going
no.
on with
He's
Russia
give him
and
the
Ukraine.
puppers. He
We're
won't
going to end
know
up in a
left or
third
right.
world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of
World
weaponry.
War III.
I rebuilt our entire
Oh, did you
military.
mention World-
She gave a lot of it away to
Oh
the
man, I don't have World
Taliban.
War III. I still have
She
war.
gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
I mean, I am trying to move to US,
Thank
but
you.
I'm trying to do it
And that is
legally.
our
I mean,
ABC
give me
News
that much.
presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Wow. Even with them like blatantly favoring and protecting Kamala, he still won. Like, don't get me wrong, he really messed up on abortion. Like, he really left up down
He
there.
really screwed up on that. And the thing is it's because, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Part of it
was
was
a
this
wash.
dude.
It was a wash.
He was a dude. You can't
Yeah.
No matter how much logic, no matter how much
No uterus, no opinion. That's what the
technology, no matter
feminists
how
are always
much-
saying.
Yeah, no matter how much
Reason.
no matter how much you think you know about it, and technology and nature versus nurture, all this other stuff, there's no way that a man's going to be able to know what that's like.
Yeah.
When
Good night, David.
Yes, good night. So he was not going to win that argument no matter what. That's why they spent 20 minutes on it. You know, but then when you went to immigration, and he started. I think they asked two separate immigration questions. In the first one, he went off on what was going on with the Haitians in Ohio, which that's up for debate. I mean, there's plenty of videos out on X right now showing what's been going on with that. But the next part is when they were talking about the border. It's like borders are. You could stop it right now. Let's stop this debate and go to Washington. Let's go to Washington right now.
Oh yeah, like again, abortion was always going to be a sore spot for him. He was never going to handle it. But like, once it got beyond that, and he started like, all he had to do was call her out. I'm like, let's physically do this thing right now. That's all he had to say. I mean, the border czar thing. What was the other one he mentioned? Like, why did the whole thing with Ukraine?
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned like, did you like? They asked her, did you? He asked if Trump literally asked Harris, did you sit down with Putin and Zelensky, and did you escalate the war 3 days later? She refused to admit or acknowledge the fact that she sat down with Putin.
That was huge. That was absolutely huge.
I just like I felt sorry. I'm really sorry to anyone who was trying to listen because I kept interrupting. But I kept saying for over and over, she will not acknowledge. She like yes or no. Did she sit with Putin? Did she sit with Putin? I kept saying it over and over, and I'm sorry if you were trying to listen to her or whatever. But like, seriously, first off, why? Secondly, it's important to point out she was filibustering like crazy. She would not acknowledge that, and Trump missed the opportunity to call her out on it.
No, he did. He did, and
all I had to do is call her out. Like, I literally asked you, did you sit with Putin? Yes or no? That's all you had to say, but he missed it. And then the moderators didn't call her out either. But like, yeah, I mean, to be fair, again, it says already. Trump really mishandled abortion, and he kept taking the bait and letting them drag it out longer than he should have. Other than that, though, he wiped the floor with her. It was a 3v1 on every topic, and he won. Those moderators.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to be a little bit more fair. Number one, Harris was a hell of a lot better than Biden. A hell of a lot better than Biden. And,
I mean, I would expect so, given that she's in her like what 50s.
Well, yeah. Well, not just that, but like a lot of the topics that they had tonight. Kind of leaned in her favor, like I said, except for immigration. She was not going to win that fight. Yeah. But
that's the biggest understatement of the fucking year there, boyo.
Oh my god, what do we got here? I'm glad he took a minute to clarify the IVF issue. Yeah, he needed to do that. But again,
I'm actually still confused why IVF is still an issue, but that's the topic for another day.
But she used too many buzzwords and too many buzz phrases and a lot of things that were already debunked.
She brought up arguments from what was it, like 2020? Like she brought arguments that were debunked 3 years ago. Like wow.
Yeah, and it's just
like even as an Irishman, I know what she was saying was bullshit, and that's impressive.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and sometimes I wonder. Like, was this always part of the playbook? Like, was it always part of the playbook to bring back things that you knew were debunked? And here's the thing. Let's leave the left and the right out of this. All right. The independents right now, who have been getting a vast majority of all of this information, have now seen exactly what they needed to see. All right. The thing about Trump is that everybody knows Trump. Everybody knows how he debates. All right. We knew that. We had no idea how Kamala was going to debate. Now, to Democrats, she was a breath of fresh air from Biden, because if this were a second debate with Biden, it would have been over. Like Trump would have won. And there would have been nothing that Biden could do in order to do so. You know, so they kind of got to get out of it.
So in my defense, though, like, hold on, just give me a second. Biden picked Harris because he knew they were trying to get rid of him, and he just out of spite picked her because he knew she was not popular in the Democratic Party. Now, if they were not completely idiotic and they kept Tulsi Gabbard, that would have been a whole different story. Could you imagine Tulsi Gabbard on stage with him?
But JFK.
Yeah, exactly.
JFK. He's still alive, folks. No, I'm just kidding. No,
for now.
But RFK, right? RFK Jr. He was there. They screwed him over not once but twice, and then you wonder why he went over to Trump. Like, why would you do that? You literally had somebody waiting in the wings that was ready to go. You literally had it, and you blew it.
Like Tulsi and RFK Jr., they were the only people the Democrats Party had that could actively compete with Trump, because that's how popular they were. And the Democrats not only didn't use them, but actively screwed him over so much they went to his side.
Exactly.
Just take a moment to appreciate just how much incompetence it takes to take a winning scenario like that and completely invert it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you need to understand. Most people think that, they just went over there, forget them, they're traitors, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding me? Those two just took 5% of the total vote with them.
Oh,
that's like 14 million votes.
I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
That's 14 million votes. And
that's
most
more
of those
enough
votes,
to win an election.
Yeah. And most of those votes are in the swing states. Because most of the people in the swing states are so sick and tired of this left and right that they decided, you know what? I'm going to go with RFK. I'm going to go with RFK Jr. And he was doing well in the swing states. He was doing very well. But the Democratic Party filed lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit to stop him from running. And what did he do? He stopped and joined Trump. Then they decided, he said, I want to get my name off of all the states. I'm going to drop out of the presidential election. Then the Democrats came back in and sued to keep his name on the swing states.
Why? I mean, he's anyone who's going to vote for him
away from Trump.
I guess, but he's already said, I'm dropping. Most people who want to vote for him already know. If you already want to vote for this guy, if you're already supporting him, you're probably more clued in than just the general, no offense, but the general public who just don't care.
Right.
So if they already know that, they already know this guy said, I want to drop out. I'm supporting Trump because he can't win otherwise. I cannot win otherwise. Even if you put him on the ballot, he's already. It just makes the Democrats look bad. I mean, the general public, any of his voters already know he said, I am endorsing Trump because he's the lesser evil. I highly doubt a lot of his people who are following him are just going to vote for him one day.
I mean, lesser evil. Well, that's the half the country. The other half of the country thinks that Kamala is the lesser evil. You can't forget.
Oh my! I'm so sorry.
Side. But that's just the reality. That's the reality. So what we have to understand here is, when are the next two debates and what are they going to talk about? Now, I'm thinking one of them is supposed to be a town hall.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to have actual people ask them questions. Because
I guess
Kamala's able to bring in her crowd and Trump is allowed to bring in his crowd, and they're able to ask equal questions from each side. That's going to be very interesting.
I guess, but it's also going to be very chaotic. No, all we've known so far is if there are two more debates, it's all abortion. That is the only thing they can talk about, because she got hammered on every other topic. Even with extra help, she lost. It's all abortion at this point from going forward. That's all they can talk about.
Yeah, but again, you have to remember, over here, you're just one voice. There are 360 million voices here, and this is the kind of the problem that I have, and this is part of the reason why I started this show. All right, ROMA stands for Rise of Middle America. All right, and the reason for that is because there are these fringe elements on each side that have capsulated, the establishment. And now everybody else that's in the middle is now we have to sit here and take whatever from each side, whatever they decide needs to happen, for our future. And a lot of this I talked about in why we still have the Electoral College, all that stuff, but that's a conversation for a different time. But there are core people in the middle who are not that informed and who are not necessarily political, who are now getting into politics.
Yeah,
exactly. And now trying to figure out, like, what did I just walk into? All right. My job is to inform that public and to inform that public on how things work. That's the reason why I have the segments that I have. I have the middle ground where we find a topic and try to find a middle ground from everyone. All right. The reason why I have Constitutional Corner, because not everybody understands the Constitution. Not everybody has read the Constitution, which I think that should be something that you should be required to learn to graduate high school. All right.
Then if I want to move to the U.S. as a citizen, I have to learn that stuff as well as your other history.
You have to learn all of that.
That makes no sense. Why do I, as an immigrant, need to learn more about your culture and history than your actual citizens do?
Exactly.
No offense. Like, everyone should learn it.
Oh, nope. Everybody hates you now. See you later. No.
People hated me before. I don't care. Bring it on.
Oh, man. But then...
dude, I'm your editor. I'm a sadist. I like the hate. I like the pain. Anyway.
Well, man, here we go. And then we've got this versus that. All right. And this versus that takes two prominent stories and pin them against each other. Okay. So next week, we're actually doing an episode of this versus that. And it's going to be Black Lives Matter versus the Civil Rights Movement. You didn't see that one coming. Because now we're going to see the similarities and contrasts of both of those movements. And then also understand that history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it rhymes. Right. And I'm going to show you the differences in each one. All right. And then our last segment is past, present, and future. And past, present, and future is typically a 3-part series. So it's 3 episodes. And this season, we're going to be focusing on the war on drugs. All right. So the first part is going to start at Prohibition. And then we're going to move into the war on drugs. And then we're going to end with hormone therapy. I know you guys are probably looking at me like I'm crazy, but we got the information and we are here for you, because a lot of people that are in my Discord, which is in the description below, these are the things that they're asking about. And these are the things that we're going to discuss. So if you haven't joined our Discord, please do. You can talk to your hosts, or you can bring up topics that you would like to hear on this very show.
Also, if you haven't already, please repost on Twitter X.
Mm-hmm.
Like on Rumble. Tell your friends, get the word out there. If you haven't already, we read super chats on a whim, but if you have, we prioritize paid super chats.
Absolutely.
Get the word out there, ladies and gents. We're the silent majority. We don't want to be silent anymore.
Oh no, I'm beyond silent now. I don't even care anymore.
And I'm trying to move to your country, and that ain't cheap. Cheers, that's an 80s.
It's not. But anyways, no, this has been a lot of fun. And I want to thank each and every one of you that watched tonight. Again, you can see the replay on Rumble. You can see it on YouTube, and it's sitting on X right now. But anyways, without further ado, I want to leave you guys out on a good note. This season, we've got a lot of special guests coming in, so stay tuned. It's going out.
Uh-oh. Roma, there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, you locked out a bit there, but yeah, thanks for joining, lads and ladies. Hope to do this again soon. Sláinte, slán go full, sláinte. Cheers.
Shalom. All right. And
I'm not Jewish, but fair enough.
Yeah, right. Neither am I. Do I look Jewish to you?
I mean, I don't judge anymore. It's 2024.
I got the beard. Should I put on, the yarmulke?
Yeah, you have the beard. I don't. Anyway, cheers, that's 80s.
Exactly. Yes, and I am AK, your favorite guy, host of the Roma Nation. You can find me on X at @therealRoma_AK. Thank you, and good night. Peace.
All right, go work there, boyo.